Welcome to the Leader's Edge podcast. I'm Zach Ewell, content producer here at Leader's Edge. In this episode, Associate Editor Chris Hahn interviews Belen Tokarski, President and COO of Mylo. Tokarski shares inspirational stories of family members who inspire her, how she fell into the insurance industry, and why she's sticking around. Give this episode of the Personal Lines podcast series a listen.
Okay, we are here with Belen Tokarski, the President and COO of Mylo, an insurance tech company based in Kansas City. Belen, you are with us from your home outside Chicago. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today. I read that when you enrolled at Cornell College, you enrolled as a chemistry major, then switched to political science, and then to psychology. So I want to ask you about that. Tell me about that kind of evolution of your thought in terms of what you were interested in studying at that point in your.
Sure. I started with chemistry because my uncle at the time worked for a pharmaceutical company and was really excited about my interest in math and science, and so took an interest in explaining what he was doing and how the things that were interesting me at school could benefit from a career in that field. So I thought, okay, I've got someone in my life who's, got a real career that sounds interesting to me. I'm going to go pursue that. I went to Cornell College, as you mentioned, which is a very small liberal arts college in the middle of Mount Vernon, Iowa, where there was not a lot to do but go to class. Cornell, you took one class at a time for 3.5 weeks, so it's an interesting program, which I really enjoyed, I will say. But being a chemistry major meant spending lots of hours just doing chemistry. I also was on the soccer team while I was there, so I was very busy with chemistry and soccer, and soon found that I wasn't terribly as interested in chemistry as I thought I was. So moved on to political science because I had some friends on the team that were doing that. At the end, getting back to psychology and really the learning and behavior elements of psychology is what I ended up focusing on. Felt more like math and science to me than anything else. And I really enjoyed it. And almost actually, when I graduated, applied to be a school psychologist, got accepted to a program to do that, and then ended up deferring it because I just wasn't sure. Like most, college kids are when they get out, they really just don't know what they want to do, which was kind of the intent of going to a liberal arts college, was to learn a little bit about a lot of things.
I want to ask you about that. I'm wondering if you entered college with a particular career in mind.
No, I didn't. In fact, the advice that I got from my grandfather was this. It was, I really encourage you to go to this small liberal arts college because you'll learn a little bit about a lot of things. You'll be able to carry on conversations about a number of different topics as a result. He made me promise, and I did do this, to take a class on art history, a class on music appreciation, and a class on public speaking. And that was really important to him that I do those things. So I did. But he said, once you complete all of that, then you're going to go on to trade school. And in his mind, trade school could mean anything. But for me, it ended up being going to get my master's in e-commerce.
Why did your grandfather pinpoint those 3 classes? Art history, music appreciation, and public speaking, you said.
Yeah, he ran his own marketing and communications company, and is a nearly 96 years old in 5 days, actually. Amazing speaker, and just culture was important. Living and growing up in the Chicago area, being able to learn as much as you could about music and art and architecture and all of those things were something that he valued and was really proud of, his knowledge. And so he thought that was important. He said, you need to be a cultured individual in this world. So promise me that. And so I did it.
It sounds like he was something of an influence on you.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, I carry most of the things he taught me, down to in the conversations that I have with my kids. The favorite joke at the house is, when I would drop them off somewhere, I'd say, don't forget to say hi to the kid in the yellow pants, which was something he would say to me when we were younger. And it was his way of saying, hey, there's going to be some kid with yellow pants at the lunch table that nobody wants to sit next to. You need to sit next to that person. Just because they're different doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk to them. And it's funny. I'm the oldest grandchild, so eldest. So I think that he had a lot of fun with me as a young grandfather. And it was just one of many, many lessons that have shaped my life. And I hope that I've passed them on to my kids. And actually, I do see them saying hi often to the kids in the proverbial, yellow pants. So I'm proud of that.
Let me ask you about growing up. You said outside of Chicago. What town were you in?
Park Ridge. So a little bit in Lincoln Park when I was younger. And then when we got a little bit older, my mom moved us to the northwest side in Park Ridge.
So tell me about growing up in Park Ridge, Illinois.
It was great. It was the, picturesque kind of picket fence type place. I played soccer, great high school experience, lots of friends, close enough to the city that you could, when you were old enough to drive and go to Oak Street Beach and hang out. I really liked it. It was, it felt safe.
And you're near Chicago still.
Yeah, we're different direction though, southwest side, so a little bit further from the city. And again, like great community. I'm in Frankfort, Illinois, and not as big as Park Ridge, but same feel, lots of big trees and lots of sports for kids and culture, a little downtown area to hang out with family, and great high school sports. So it was a nice place for us to raise our family.
You called your mom in the bio that you sent me, one of the hardest workers I know. So tell me a little bit about that and what lessons she passed on to you.
Yeah, she is a huge mentor for me. She is constantly working, figuring out, problem solving, probably one of the most not just hardworking, but resilient people that I know. She was a single mom, so, had to raise me and my sister, and then ultimately half brother pretty much by herself. So working mom, but also was soccer coach, was Brownie leader, did all of those things. So she, for me, made it very clear early on that you could be a mom, and be an executive. She was a sales executive, very successful for many years. And that was great. And then watching me grow up, going off to college, getting a master's degree, ultimately getting married, ultimately having children, she would often, we'd sit back, have a glass of wine on a Friday night, because she also lived in Frankfurt. So she helped watch kids when she retired, which was great. And she would say, I'm so proud of you. How are you dealing with the questions you get about how are you managing all of this that you're doing? And I'd say, it's really hard, Mom. People just think that it all comes easily and you can, do the big projects, do the work travel, be at the meetings, be there for a sporting event, all of that. And she said, yeah, the thing is, most people don't really understand that, internally that you're not doing all of it 100%. And that, internally that you're striving for excellence, not perfection. And that's the key. And that you're making sure that the most important things are getting done. And that means sometimes some things aren't getting done, and that's okay. So one of the most important lessons I would say is that she gave me permission to focus on that, and focus on excellence over perfection, and let me know that while I didn't know that, I thought she was perfect all the time, that she also was going through those same feelings.
Tell me about your entry into insurance. How did that happen?
Yeah, that was kind of like by chance, which I think is, true for most people.
I hear that a lot.
You hear that a lot. I fell into it. You don't wake up saying, I want to be in insurance. I had a really good friend who was working at CNA Insurance, and I was living in Lincoln Park, commuting to Lincolnshire, where Hewitt had a huge office all the time. I was getting my MBA at the time, so I'd started my trade school process, and I was getting my MBA part-time. And she said to me one time, hey, they're launching this whole e-business thing. This is like 2000. And they've got 2 floors at the Big Red Building in CNA that are decked out with ping pong tables, whiteboards everywhere, bright colors. It's right up your alley. You should come and check it out. And so I interviewed and got a job working with that team. And I am a heads down kind of like doer. I like to break things. I'm a problem solver. So I got assigned to be part of the QA team for what was their first carrier portal, and just learned. I was a sponge. Like, in order to break things, you have to understand how they're supposed to work. So I learned a lot about different insurance products, carrier portals, databases, all the things. And was good at it, apparently, because they ended up putting me on different projects. I spent nearly 15 years at CNA, always in the small commercial side of the house, starting on IT, but ultimately moved on to the business side, where I ran large projects to create a new bot product, real-time quoting initiatives with different technologies. And I just had a lot of fun. I was learning and getting to play with kind of like learning and behavior, the user experience of those systems and how agents use them. What's the best way to keep agents in our system versus our competitor systems so that we can write more business with them. And that was just awesome. So, and I learned a lot. And insurance, honestly, and I think this is why the younger people that I work with today have so much fun talking to me, because I get very excited talking about insurance and technology, and in a way it's inspiring to them. But yeah, I fell into it, Chris. I don't even think I knew what insurance really was until I got a car and I had to buy car insurance. I mean, it just wasn't something that was talked about at all in our home.
Yeah.
But now it's the most important thing really that I can think of outside of my family.
Yeah. You said it was fun.
Yeah.
What made it fun?
I think what makes it fun is that there's still so much opportunity to, improve and modernize it. And I don't like saying disruption, because I don't think that's it. Like, I actually think that there are still elements of it that are ripe for improvement and modernization. And I just keep finding new things. And I spent 15 years on the carrier side, and I left to join an insurtech in Chicago. And so that was interesting. So shifting from carrier to the agency side, that I never would have done that, if I hadn't, had an opportunity to make that change. And then moving from that insurtech to Mylo, where I am now, where I've learned about more products, not just doing commercial lines anymore. That's been fascinating. And then the technology has evolved so much. And the people, honestly, the people in the industry are fascinating. It's not all golf and, dinners, there's more to it. And that's been fun. I've made some really good friends too.
You said earlier, I like to break things.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I like to challenge the status quo. So I don't like to be told something can't be done. And I like to figure it out. I'm not one of those people that, there are people that want to do puzzles and they never want to complete the puzzle. I like completing it and moving on to something else. So if something is like perfect, I'm not going to break it. But I mean, I like to figure out how we can make things better, I guess, is the way that I think about it. I think about, building muscle too. You have to kind of break it to build it. And so when I think about breaking, I don't mean like destroying. I mean breaking for the purpose of improving.
So you have been in the business for close to 25 years, it sounds like?
Yeah. I thought you said 45 for a second.
No.
No, 25. Yeah, it'll be 25 years. Yeah, no, a few months.
What's kept you in the business?
Things that I do, I guess I would say, are fairly portable. So the areas that I focus on around operations and strategy and using technology, the base elements of what I do are fairly portable. So I guess I could have gone into a different industry. I just keep finding more things to work on, and more challenges. And I don't know. I think it's the people, it's the opportunity that's there. Making the change from the carrier side to the agency side, when I did, ended up being a really good move. I mentioned that my mom retired, but what she did really was turn into an executive recruiter, and so from home. And I remember asking her if I should take this other opportunity, and her advice was, look, you've been at CNA for almost 15 years, and eventually if you're forced into having to go find another job or something like this, if your hand is, you're called and you show your resume and you've been somewhere for 15 years, they may say, wow. It's like the opposite of what you would say to somebody who's switching all the time. Wow, they've been there for 15 years. I wonder if they can learn a different culture. I wonder if they can, do something different. And so she ended up saying, what do you have to lose? And I didn't have anything to lose at that time, other than like a really comfortable job in a company that had been good to me for so many years. Got married, had my 3 kids, all the things while I was I feel like I grew up at CNA. But I do think that change is what kind of reignited my interest in what was going on and really gave me another like adrenaline, push to keep me going. And then once I felt that feeling, I realized when I was at Inspirational for 4 years that it was time for another, adrenaline jump. And when I had the opportunity to go work for Mylo, I took it, and I became more comfortable taking risks that way too, I guess. And so that wasn't something that I would have done 5 years into my career at CNA.
I was going to ask you about that. So why Mylo? What was the appeal?
With Mylo, a couple of things. One was when I left CNA, went to join an insurtech, right? So many of the insurtechs have a lot of really great backing, and sometimes not as much insurance knowledge. And there's varying degrees of that. I'm not going to generalize, but you do see that. And when I was at Inspirational, I felt good, but I was attracted to the Mylo opportunity because at the time I joined, they had backing from Lockton, and a large broker like Lockton has lots of insurance expertise. And so as an investor, that gave me a lot of confidence in making the switch. The second thing would have been that Mylo had more than just commercial lines insurance. So it was an opportunity for me to learn about how I could do more to improve personal lines and also small group benefits, which I had zero exposure to in the past, which was exciting. And then third, the people. I learned that when I left Hewitt to go to a CNA. It was for more money. It was back in the early 2000s, and I was money motivated as a young person. Didn't really think about how important the people were. So I had really good people that I worked with at Hewitt. And when I made that jump, I was like, oh man, I don't know. Like, these people are different. It's the city. It's not Lincolnshire. It's hard. But I got used to that. So, but I did keep that. I kept the fact that if I leave, I want to make sure I know the people to make sure it's going to be a real good fit. And so the Mylo part, I had been trying to sell the insurance technology to the Mylo team. So I got to know them for a while before I made the switch.
Okay.
And so that gave me comfort.
Yeah.
It's a really great team.
You're the president and CEO. You probably have many, many duties and responsibilities. What do you consider the most important part of your job?
What I consider the most important part of my job is making sure that we're moving towards our key objectives. So keeping everybody on track as the president and the COO. Like, I've got responsibility for all the sales. I've got responsibility for all of our product. I report to the board. I still have parts of marketing. So I kind of touch almost everything and partner very closely with our CEO, David Embry, on those things. And so that's a huge responsibility. The most important part of my job, though, I would say, is making sure that I'm continuing to develop the talent that we have on the team and making sure they understand what we're doing. So I probably spend 50% of my day on calls with my team, asking questions, checking for understanding, teaching, coaching, which is one of my favorite things to do, and really trying to inspire them through storytelling. And they probably get tired of my analogies, but I find that it's the best way to explain complex things to younger people. But I love the coaching part of my team to keep them engaged, towards the different projects and initiatives that are helping us achieve our financial goals.
That was Associate Editor Chris Hahn interviewing Belen Tokarski. I hope you enjoyed it. For more episodes of our Personal Lines podcast series, go to leadersedge.com or find our podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.